Okay, folks, I'm here with Chris Oehlerking, otherwise known as my swing coach for basically the entirety of my golf career. And I am a little disappointed I haven't
Oh,
had you on the pod sooner. We're almost a year into the more than a year into the website. Um, but I'm excited for this one. So, Chris, why don't you kind of just tell us, and I'm sure I'm going to learn stuff too throughout this, but
yeah.
why don't you just tell us kind of your background, where you're from, maybe how you got into the game?
Yeah, from Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Um, and got into the game at like a 10, 11-year old. And my dad had played golf and always had clubs like hanging around the garage and chipping in the backyard. And so he had these like Tag Ultra blades. I remember all the way to 2 iron. And I'd swing them. And I don't know, he started taking me out and started playing and just sort of liked it. And then just start getting into it more. He joined a club so I could play and have access consistently. And starting that junior program, just like playing like 9 holes on, Sunday afternoons when the course was clear, and then started playing competitively and was on from there.
Nice. And this is not a scripted question, but is there a moment when I guess golf became that love? Like for me, it was watching Jordan Spieth win the Masters in 2015. I was like, whoa, like that's cool. Was there a moment like that, kind of for you, or was like, well, I want to do that, or I
Yeah,
want to do those types of things?
yeah, good question. I mean, I was growing up. I mean, when I was Tiger won the Masters in '97, I was 16.
Okay.
So, like, that was, I mean, at that moment, I don't know if that was the moment, but that certainly was like a big moment. Um, and actually, the guy that I used to take lessons from, it's so funny. I took like one lesson a year, half an hour lesson a
Yeah,
year.
like my dad.
I see
Yeah.
what, let's see what you guys, yeah, like your
Yeah.
dad. Hey, can you fix my putting, chipping, and my driver?
Right. In one session. Yeah.
Oh, and I got a really bad shoulder and I can't turn my hip. Um, but he had tickets to the U.S. Open in '96 at Oakland Hills, and Tiger played as an amateur,
Hmm.
and I had no idea who Tiger was at that time, and so went there and just like there was all this buzz. I remember he was like on the ninth green. It's like a long par three, and it was just like who's playing in this group? I mean, like I haven't seen a crowd this big, and that was Tiger. So
Huh.
I think around that, around that time.
That's so cool. And then I guess we fast forward to when you are choosing kind of the next step of your amateur career, choosing a college.
Yeah.
You end up going to Chicago State, which is funny, still in Chicago to this day. What came about, around that decision? Yeah.
Yeah, so, when I was playing competitively in high school, there was like local stuff, but, you know, just sort of like the regional and national stuff wasn't like kind of on our radars,
Mm-hmm.
as juniors. Um, but I had somehow gotten in touch, or this group got in touch with me, sort of a college recruiting business, and came to our house, interviewed us, and we went with a commitment with them. But they had a tournament in Toronto that they hosted, and they invited coaches to. And so me and a couple buddies went up there with my dad, and and played pretty well in that tournament, and so had some interest. And it's so funny. This is in June, going into my freshman year of college. I'm already registered at the University of Windsor at home in
Huh.
Canada, and so this like I always like grew up thinking like I had that ping book with all the college coaches,
Yep.
and I would like circle like UCLA and Michigan, and just kind of thought they were gonna just call me
Yep.
or to like know that I won a 9 hole tournament
Right.
in small town in Canada. So um, anyways, played in that tournament, played decent, got some interest, visited a couple schools, and um, we never realized one how close Chicago was to where we were. Um, Came to the school, went to this downtown, visited downtown. It was just like, um, I haven't really seen something like that,
Yeah.
like a big city to that extent. Um, and then also it was a newer program, and so they gave me a full ride. So that was like, um, like at the time, like now, the Canadian dollar was worth anything, and so to come here would have been a lot of money, a decent amount of money, especially with that exchange rate. And so to get that offer and be like the first scholarship player that they had was pretty cool. So that's why I chose Chicago State.
It's pretty awesome. I didn't know that. And then I guess going through your college days, was there a turning point? Did you always want to get into coaching, or was there a turning point?
No, no,
No.
that was never in the plan. Um, my dad always said that he thought I'd be a teacher, like
Huh.
growing up, but not like not a golf coach teacher,
Right.
just a teacher of anything, right? And so he kind of saw that in me. But no, I in college I just I didn't know what I was going to do. I was a business major, didn't know what that would pan out to be, and
Yeah.
and uh, you know, just figured, hey, after college, I was going to try to stay in Chicago and get a job, and I got a job in retail or in retail, yeah, retail management, and hated it. It's like the worst. It's like the worst job ever. I was like around people that were mean. I had 5 minute break. I was, eating a bag of chips in the a bag of chips on a milk crate in an alleyway, like and was just kind of sitting there thinking, what am I doing? Like, I don't want to do this, but it was the only way I could stay in the U.S. I had
Right.
like a little 1 year work visa, and so I actually didn't tell anybody that I signed up for the playability test through the PGA, and I had 1 day off a week, and I was hitting balls at Diversity Driving Range downtown on
Yep.
Sundays, getting ready for this thing. And I don't know. I don't think I told my mom. I wouldn't tell my dad because he would be like, "I'm practicing," all that. He would
Right.
have just been adding to the pressure. So only my mom knew. So it's 36 holes. I think the target score was like 70 pair 77s or something like that. Shot 75 the first round. I was in a couple. Played this my third nine at like 4 over par, so I was 2 over the number. And then I went a stretch on the back nine. I birdied three of the last four holes to get in by two or something. It was like,
Nice.
I hadn't been playing golf or anything,
Right.
and so I had told myself if I passed the playability test that I would go into golf. So
Huh.
for the summers in college, I worked for the Illinois PGA, so I got to know some people there and in the business, and so I had met the head pro at Winnetka Golf Club when I was an intern. Gave them a call, and they were hiring. So I went from 63rd and Halstead on the south side in Inglewood to Winnetka on the North Shore.
A little different.
Yeah, at a golf course from Walgreens to a golf course. So
Gosh.
yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's wild. Well, thank goodness you birdied three of the last four.
Jesus.
Okay, so I knew that you worked at Winnetka. Now, when does the vision you meet Peter Donahue, which I guess we could get to him in a little bit, but where does the vision of the golf practice kind of take place and kind of starting your own thing?
Yeah, so when I started at Winnetka, I didn't. Again, I thought I wanted to be a head pro. And so I went in with that idea. I didn't even know being a teacher was kind of a thing.
Hmm.
Like guys didn't really teach a lot, where I was from. So I didn't even think that that was a profession. I always thought a head pro was, how you're going to be able to be in the business and make a living. And so I was the young guy, right? I was the sixth assistant, 23 years old, the young guy on the staff. And I'm answering the phone calls, all the phone calls in the pro shop, and I'm filling everyone's book with lessons all day long,
Yeah.
and I'm like getting paid $10 an hour, and they were charging 42 a half hour, and I was like,
Right.
so the pro at the time told me I had to shadow for a year, and I couldn't help myself. I booked a lesson a couple months into my working there, like in May or something, and I just went to his office. I was scared. I was just like, "Hey, Courtney, I booked myself a lesson." He's like, "I'll be there." And so he hit balls in the stall beside me, and he observed, and then we met after. He told me how he did. Um, and so initially it was like I can make more money teaching than doing the other things. But then it was like I like being outside. I like being with people. I like helping people. I like seeing them, do things
Yeah.
that they once could do. Um, so that's when I really got into it, and I started teaching more and more. And then I sort of sought out Peter after being introduced to him and finding out what Green Tea was. And there's a golf academy close by that was, I could teach full time. And so I went and worked for him after 3 years at Winnetka. And I think I worked for him for 5 years. And he was just looking to do something else. And so we decided to start the golf practice in 2012,
Huh.
11.
Gosh, so what is that? 12 years now. What would you say? And I'm totally going off script here. Was the golf practice now you have how many coaches on staff?
Right now, we're like at 8.
Was that always the vision to just continue to grow and have more bays, and or was it more of a? It's just kind of what it turned into over time.
Yeah, it evolved.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was just like, could we keep the lights on?
Right. Yeah.
Like, could we get a couple people in our programs to like actually run the program? Like, oh, we have to cancel the program because only 2 people signed up, type of thing. So in the beginning, it's just very modest, and could we move north and like survive? Right? I mean,
Mm.
we weren't that far away, but we're changing facilities and that kind of stuff. So,
Right.
um, so yeah, I mean, as things grew, that sort of pushed us to think, what's the next step? What's the next step? And that's how we've always operated. We've never, I would say, our long-term visions now are becoming more clear than they were before because we couldn't really see, you know, more than 5 feet in front of us. So
Right. And I know Peter's been a huge mentor to you. Are there any other coaches in the golf industry that have kind of taken you under their wing or you've learned from?
yeah, I mean, first off, when I went to go work for Peter, um, I sort of sought out Haney and got connected with him. Wanted to learn from somebody who had done really well, was successful for themselves, and his philosophy, I immediately gravitated towards, and I kept going down there and spending time with him and his coaches, and so he was a big mentor, him and his staff. And then Stan Utley, when I worked for Peter, they used to bring Stan out and do
Mm.
clinics, and I mean, I was like, this guy is, he's he's changing my world. My
Yeah.
concepts, my short game concepts came from Golf Digest magazine in the mid '80s, mid '90s. So I mean, to hear him like break all those myths or beliefs was wild. And he was a good guy, and I liked the way he presented. And so, just I've been doing stuff with Stan for like 15 years now. So
Huh. Now, is there anything else you want to say about Hank? I know there's some developing story there, but you don't have to if you don't
yeah,
want to.
yeah, no, he's back in town, and we got randomly reconnected out of just complete, you know, series of events.
Wow.
And now he's working, and I should say where he's teaching out of our facility. And actually today I finished my first golf school with him. We did a 3-day golf school with a local guy here, and so me and Hank sort of collaborate, on that effort. And so yeah, I've been kind of running on a high for the last 3 days doing that with him. A guy I sort of looked up to and learned from, and he helped give me sort of vision that like you could really do something with teaching, and you could help people in a significant way, and you could build a business. and so that's what he did. So for him to kind of come full circle, for him to see what I've been up to the last 12 years, to see our facility, to be impressed enough to want to teach his own lessons at our place, that was a cool compliment.
Yeah, I mean, gosh, I would hope you're pinching yourself, right? It's just so cool how it's come full circle. It is awesome. What do you think the golf practice does that kind of stands out from maybe other places? Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I know that's a hard question, but I think it's something really
Yeah.
unique.
Yeah. Well, I would say first, um, the sort of the level of thoughtfulness that we have when we're designing like facilities. Um, uh, you know, we've just been very thoughtful about everything we've done, in the design build out. And so I think our place sort of sets us apart a little bit. I think people can sense our commitment to golf instruction and coaching when we're at the facility. Um, I would say that our people, we stand out by the people in our organization. Um, everybody cares a lot. Everybody's fully invested. Everyone sort of has that growth mindset, and so I'd say that helps us stand out. Culture,
Yeah.
the culture of our place. When you're in it every day, sometimes you don't realize really what's being created, and so um, last winter there was a top 100 golf teacher in the area where we're at, and he brought his son into our place, and was thinking about having him come to see us. And when we were walking out, he said, Chris, there's a feel of this place that it, that I can just tell that there's something special going on here,
Hmm.
you know. And it's like that was his number one. That was his compliment to us. So it's one of the most things I'm proud about. But not that it really came about organically. Again, I think it's just the people and I would say that you know the leadership of Peter's helped create a large part of that
Hmm.
culture.
That's cool.
So
Do you have any coaching philosophies in terms of swing stuff or short game stuff?
yeah, I mean I've got preferences. I would say in terms of um, technical stuff. Um,
You can get into that
and that's just
if you. I'm kind of a geek about it, so if you want to get into it.
yeah. I mean it's Andy this morning yesterday. Me, Jansen, and Andy were all talking, and Andy's like, "Hey, you want to hear about the craziest idea I've ever had for the golf practice?" And it's like, every day Andy drops something.
Right.
So when he said the craziest, and he's like, "What if everyone in M360 like the first lesson they get is from Chris, and then they see me, Andy, and then Jansen. So it's like Chris, the technical teacher, um, Andy, sort of the performance and the free spirit and like Vision 54, and then you got Jansen who's like integrating the body, and like they just like cycled through us. So I mean, I love talking technique and stuff like that, um, X's and O's and philosophies um, and I don't even know if the people would be interested in hearing all that, but like
That's fine.
I would say in terms of philosophies, like I like communicating through feel versus words.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's something I got from Hank. My words being interpreted by you may not be what I'm looking for. So you might still leave with confusion, but if I can move you through the space or give you the feeling of what it's like, then you can kind of go inside and have your own words applied to it. So sort of less talking. I always felt like I could go to like Japan and be a decent teacher there
Right.
without even speaking the language.
Hmm.
So I think my patience is just sort of a philosophy. Like I understand the struggle of like golf, and so I feel like I have like a passion for my students and what they're going through. So I have like like some people when they're in front of you and they're not that great, like are embarrassed and they apologize. I'm sorry, I'm hitting it so bad, and or like I'm like it's a dig on me that they're not getting better quicker. Like, oh, I'm sorry that I'm not doing this right away, and and I hardly ever feel impatient with a student
Right.
because of what they're going through, right? I mean, I'm in there in the trenches with you, so um, so yeah. Let's see. Um, I wrote a couple things. Just don't assume like people know what you're talking about. Like when you're communicating. Um, I remember a lady coming in the pro shop and she was getting a lesson and she asked where she should meet the pro and he said by the green and she came back in and she said it's all green. And it's like oh wow, we're starting there. Um, so like just don't assume people know what you're talking about. I would say the last two things is like building physical and mental awareness. Like that's something that I'm trying to do more and more of now. Of when you're coaching somebody, like trying to connect with, open their awareness to what they're doing, and then helping people stay organized to what they're doing.
Hmm.
Um, I think I certainly the first half of my career did not get my students organized enough with what they're doing. I would tell them what I thought they needed to do, and then just let them go from there. Right. So organizing your practice swings or your pre-shot routine or the way you would practice or um, the clubs you would hit on the range, like getting people organized from the bottom to the top.
That's cool. Yeah, I'd say the thing I love about you most, your top five, there's so many things, would be the patience of it. I feel like a lot of teachers are like, hey, I see this kid for an hour, I want a quick fix. It's like, no, it's super process oriented, which I mean, I just love. Coolest coaching moment, there could be a couple that you've kind of had your part in. Whether it's a guy who couldn't break 110 and now he's a scratch, or I don't know. I'm sure there's a bunch,
Yeah,
but
yeah. There's so you have moments, I want to say daily, maybe weekly or something like that, where again you're out there in the trenches with people. You got a person who never hit the ball in the air, and they hit the ball in the air and they like look back. I mean, like
hmm,
that certainly is a proud moment. Uh, Someone who wants to play like in their company outing, and they always deny it because they're embarrassed, and they like just get it around. So there's those things that as coaches like we don't like publicize. Like that's not
yeah,
what the golf consumers want to hear. Um, but that there's a number of those that happen. Um, and then in terms of the stuff people like to hear about, those success stories, uh, I would say, the moment with you and Lexi winning Chick Evans was
hmm,
pretty emotional for me, man.
yeah, that was cool.
Like as a young teacher, you hear about these tournaments, the kids playing, and then you start teaching, and you're just trying to get a kid in that tournament, right? Like your kids are like your kids aren't even doing the qualifier, and then they're doing the qualifier, and then they get in the tournament, and so it's a tournament that I always heard about, and just the way that you were going into college and Lexi's going into high school, both kids that I worked with for a number of years at that point, and then to just see you guys start winning matches, I start getting excited.
Yeah,
Oh my god! And then you guys make it to the end, and just to be able to watch you guys do that, I mean, just like um, yeah, I got emotional a couple times on the golf course out there. It's just like you know, um, I'm right there with you guys,
for sure.
and so and I know how much time you guys put into it, so that was a very cool moment. And that came the year after Max Golding had won,
That's right.
you know, and um, and so that was like, you know, that was a big win, and that was a cool moment. And then for you guys to follow up, let's see, I used to caddy for Lexi down in the U.S. Kids Junior Worlds in Pinehurst, and that was like a couple experiences for me. I think I did it 4 times with her, and once with Martha. It's an experience for me to see like what the best juniors in the world are doing, like what they look like at age, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way up. Like what's the trajectory of like a 7-year-old who hits it good? Like what should that look like? What window should they be hitting that through? Um, so we did that a few times, and I think the second or third time she shot even par 150 girls, and she was fifth place. And I just was like, holy, like she's competing,
Right.
on the big stage. That was definitely a big moment. Let's see, that first person getting to college, the state tournament was a big thing.
Yep.
Like I remember coaching years of like not getting, like none of my players ever got to state, and like I would never, I would never tell you guys like what it meant for me to be a part of you guys actually just getting to state.
Right.
I wanted to like pretend like I'd been here before,
Yep.
but like that Haney always said you got to, like you got to get someone to make their high school team, college team, and it moves up. You don't just get a tour player, knocking at your door. So
Right.
um, so that ascension was cool. Um, Alex Finger, Highland Park. He just graduated. He's going to Michigan, playing there. He went through some stuff with his putting, and he was kind of on the fence whether he wanted to keep at it, at that committed level. I remember it was the winter before his senior year, and I remember just like the kid was too good to stop, and convinced him to keep going through the winter, and we were trying all types of alternative ways of putting to help him get over, because Alex Finger has like stuff that like he's got Bubba curvature skills.
Right.
He doesn't see anything straight. That's why putting's hard for him. I think he doesn't see straight lines. Um, so he just was so committed. He came out, and I was just like, he's like, no coach, like no coaches are watching me. And I was like, well, if you won the first like 3 tournaments of your season, I remember you did that your junior year. Like
Yeah.
you came out early April, you won a couple tournaments, and all of a sudden things, kind of turned around. So I knew it was a possibility, and he came out hot. And it was just like he had a stretch of like 4 to 6 tournaments that were just awesome. And so just like kind of riding that roller coaster, emotional roller coaster with him,
Yeah.
and like trying to like have him keep going, for him to buy in, give it a go, and then have that sort of run. That was cool. And the last thing I wrote was just like, Martha qualifying for drive, chip, and putt, and getting to go down to Augusta from like the coaching side and being inside the ropes, to having her, having her win. I kind of knew she was going to win. It was crazy. I looked up every player, like their ranking and what they were shooting. Like
Yeah.
I wanted to know who we were up against, and I remember on the range, and I was like listening to all the 10 T-balls, like we were warming up, just a group of 10, and I can always tell by someone's trajectory whether like that ball is what it's doing. And I was just like listening to all the balls in the morning. It's like 7:30 in the morning, Augusta National, no wind, and you just hear like 10 balls going, and Martha's was the loudest, and I knew, I was like, nobody could mess with that. I told her, and I was just like, hey, I watched everyone here, and you can hit it farther than everybody, so you're
Right.
gonna go out there and win, you know. Um, so that was a cool moment, and then just being inside, having lunch at the clubhouse was everything.
Yeah. Gosh, that's cool. Well, I know you're way too humble. Those are the student highlights. I know some coaching highlights. You were just named to what Golf.com's Rising Stars list, which is pretty sweet. Are there any some of those accolades, awards, coaching goals that you have, or are you is it more just process and
Yeah, it always ends up being process,
right?
no matter what. Um, it's hard to know what the goals are. Sometimes you have to like reflect to yourself, like, what am I going after here? Um, I think to be able to just say like, hey, that person was successful. They created something. Um, they made a good living. They helped a lot of people. Like that, that would feel cool for people to think of me or look at me as that. Um, uh, you know, change. What's sort of happening is we're like sort of maybe changing the way people build like treat people like their employees. Like in the golf teaching, like getting health insurance and like 401k retirements and like having a family and raising them while doing something that you love, to me, like that. Um,
Hmm.
yeah, I didn't know that that was possible, when I was
Right.
a junior golfer. So to be a part of maybe that movement of just like getting things in a better place for like teachers, that's certainly cool. Um, this this golf magazine thing felt pretty cool too, to be just recognized. I've always felt like we're doing good things, but to see sort of the outside world of people that I like look up to, sort of looking at what we're doing, saying, "Hey, you guys are doing some good stuff," like that. That felt good.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. All right, a couple fun questions now. Not that those weren't fun, but favorite
Man, I'm
swing.
getting choked up, man. I'm getting
Good.
choked up
Good.
talking about this stuff. Jeez.
We're getting the feels. Favorite swing of all time.
Tiger with Haney.
There you go. Yeah.
I you know I know what he was teaching him. It was like literally the model that Haney talks about, and then all the nine windows that Haney would talk about, like showed us on how to do all of those, and for I don't know if he had to convince Tiger of like hey, this is mastery. I mean, to be able to do this, like you can get to any pin. I don't think it took convincing, but maybe exposing that to Tiger. Um, so so yeah, that's
Yeah. And
Tiger with Haney.
what was his winning percentage with Hank? Wasn't it like 30 something or
Yeah,
something crazy?
yeah. I actually was looking it up the other day because I was curious when we were doing the golf school together. The student we were working with, Hank was telling him about the drive, chip, and putt win at Augusta, and I was like, yeah. Hank, I was like, I got to win at Augusta too. You know.
Yeah.
And so then I was like, how many majors did Tiger win under Hank? And then so they start listing all the tournaments and all like the top threes and top fives, and it's like holy crap, they were really on a roll.
Right.
Amazing.
Um, go to meal.
Chipotle or Potbellies. It's
Nice.
just sorry, it's so easy, so
Um,
good.
favorite musician or band?
Mm. God, I'm all over the place. I'm in a Rufus right now. um, Brother-in-law got me into Rufus. Like, even though it was like probably super cool to everyone else like 5 years ago, like I'm just like coming to it. Um, I don't know, like Kanye and Jay Z and Dave Matthews Band and Erica Badu. Like, I'm all over the place.
Love it. And then if you were to watch one movie for the rest of your life, what would it be?
I think it's gonna. I think it's gonna be Tiger Woods 2019. If they ever come out with a movie about that story, like I'd watch that every day.
Yeah. 2019 Masters?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd watch it every day. Absolutely.
All right.
Um, I don't know. I liked Karate Kid when I was a kid.
Nice.
Karate Kid was my jam.
Yep.
Back to the Future.
Okay. Love it. That's kind of all I got. Thank you so much. I know you're a busy man, so um,
This was fun.
thank you so much for this, and I think the viewers will enjoy. Yeah.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Dan. See you, man.
Thanks, Chris.